Okay. Hey everybody, it's Avi from musical.engineering. We're starting a little teensy bit earlier, so just want to discuss a little bit what I want to talk about today. So I want to talk about chord types for a second. Chord types are essentially, the quality of the chord that we're using, major, minor, augmented, diminished, seventh chords, add nine chords. Some of those we're going to talk about today. Well, first I want to tell you about my free guide, 7 Ways to Write a More Effective Melody. It's packed with some really great techniques I use every single time I go to sit down for a writing session. Just head over to musical.engineering. I'm going to leave a link down in the description at the end of this video. But yeah, that's all for everybody who's joining us in after the fact. We're going to talk about not only a few chord types that are super easy to learn and add some pretty incredible color and really fantastic openness to your songs, but I'm also going to have a special announcement at the end of this live video that that's pretty exciting and got some cool stuff coming up in the pipeline. The pipeline. So stick around for that. Number one, I want to talk about, what chord types are. I just touched on it a little bit, but a chord type is essentially the literal type of chord or the quality of the chord that we're playing, right? So if so a C major chord, a major is the chord type that I'm talking about when you play a C major chord like this, right? So that's what chord types are. So major, minor, right? We can use diminished chords like this, right? Ugh, really unstable. So there are very specific types that I want to talk about today that are really, really fun, really, really cool, and can really elevate your songwriting, because it's really easy to get stuck in this loop of using just major or just minor chords. And even when we're using dominant seventh chords, those can get pretty stale. They add a nice amount of tension, but they can still start to feel a little bit basic, So we're going to talk about 3 chord types that I personally love to use all over the place. These aren't like really special or anything like that. If you know anything about songwriting or about music theory, about chords, you're going to know what I'm talking about. This is really for people who are maybe not so familiar with that stuff, but still, want to elevate their songwriting and elevate their harmonic vocabulary. That's a fancy way to say that. Harmonic vocabulary. Yeah, and literally all we're talking about that is, the amount of chords that are at your disposal when you're writing and when you're workshopping some of your songs so that you can, start writing some cool stuff that sounds a little bit more elevated than just our simple major, 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 right? Because that's everywhere, and we want to sound a little bit different. We want to sound, not better than anyone else, but the best version of ourselves that we can be, because it's all just music, right? That's all it is. It's just music. All we should do, we just gotta write the music. That's all we want to do. More on that later. So the first chord type I want to talk about is the major 7 chord. Now the major 7 chord is really cool because it adds a little bit of complexity to the major chord that we know all along, right? Let's take our C major chord, for example, here. Oh, standard C major chord, nothing really all that interesting about it. It's bright, it's uplifting, it's cool, but it's also a little bit teensy bit lame, right? It's just the timing is a bit kind of lame. So we can spice it up a little bit by just adding a B natural right there to our C chord. Our C chord is made up of C, E, and G, right? You can figure that out by just taking the root, the C, skipping one letter, going to the next one, then E, skipping another letter, going to the next one, and G. That's a really common way, a really useful way to build what's called a triad, which is like the main part of a major or minor chord. But we can extend that triad. If we were to continue that pattern, we would go from G, we would skip A, and go to B. And that's how we create 7th chords. Now you might think, hey, what do I need 7th chords for? I don't write jazz, right? And maybe you're right, but I disagree. If you listen to any type of music, chances are you're going to be hearing that seventh chord somewhere in it, whether you're listening to jazz or blues or rock or hip hop or electronic music, anything. You're going to find these really cool chord types involved in there because they elevate the sound. So the way to create a major seventh chord, the easiest way, right from our basic C chord, is just take away your pointer finger. Release your pointer finger from the first fret of the B string and just let that open B string, ring out. Oh, already, right? There is a color to it, this complexity almost. Suddenly, things aren't exactly as we left them. They're not perfect and hunky-dory and everything's great now. No, things are nuanced now. Things aren't always as they seem. That's kind of the effect that a major seven chord can give off. And let's just take a look at this in the chord progression, right? So say let's start with a C and we'll go into the C major seven so you can really hear the difference, kind of like we just did back to back. But this is more in the context of an actual chord progression. So here's our C. Really simple, really singer-songwriting type stuff. Okay, going to an A minor. We moved someplace, but we're still pretty close. Let's end it. Okay, hitting our dominant, hitting our G. Let's go down to our C major 7. Right? It's really useful in this type of setting when you're kind of just letting it ring out after not using that 7th chord. It really makes that major 7th chord, it really highlights it. It really accentuates it and accentuates that difference. Now, the main thing about this chord that adds that kind of colorful feeling is the dissonance between the B natural and the C natural. They're just a half step apart, right? So that means that half step, that's a minor second in terms of the intervals, right? So that's our octave. It doesn't necessarily sound consonant, right? But just because it's not consonant doesn't mean it sounds bad, right? Consonance and dissonance is really useful here. So it's a really cool, really unique type of sound that is absolutely used a ton. I guarantee you've heard it. Maybe now you just have it. You have a name for that type of sound. So that's our first chord type that I think would be super cool if you used in your next song, and it can really add some great color and some great nuance to what might otherwise be a pretty straightforward harmonic tone. Just major chord, okay. Major 7 chord. Now we got a little bit of spice there. We're making things a little crunchy. Okay. So that's our first chord type. The second chord type I want to talk about is an add 9 chord or 9 chord. You can use both. Let's talk about the difference between those first. So a 9 chord is essentially, we're just kind of continuing on from the 7th chord. If with the 7th chord, we have our 1, 3, 5, and 7, right? So we have C, E, G, and B natural. If we continue that even further, that same pattern of skipping a letter, going to the next letter, we would have C, E, G, B, then skipping C, we go to D, right? So we're kind of adding this D above the octave. D is the second scale degree, or the second degree, just a major second away from our C, which in this case is the root of our chord. So what we're doing is we're adding a D, usually above the octave. It doesn't necessarily have to be above the octave. So in this case, the easiest way to do it is to take our pinky over here on our basic C chord, and we're going to put it right there on the 3rd fret of the B string. And this also creates a major second dissonance, but this time it's a lot closer. You'll hear it right here. Right? That doesn't sound good. That doesn't necessarily sound good on its own or in its context, especially in the context of tonal music, or the type of music where you normally hear major, minor type of chords. Not so great, no. But in the context of this full C add 9 chord, whoa, that sounds so good, so beautiful and open. Oh, I love it. It's so great. So let's talk about that difference that I mentioned earlier. So there's 9 chords and there's add 9 chords. Same thing with 11th chords. There's 11 chords, there's add 11 chords. The main difference is that when we're working with, say, a C9 chord, we're also going to be including the 7th of that chord. So a C9 chord would have our root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and the 9th. But our add 9 chord, we're just kind of literally adding on the 9th on top of the C major chord. So it doesn't include the 7th, or it doesn't have to include the 7th in that regard. So that's what we're doing here, the C add 9 chord. We're doing that one right there. And this brings a lot of openness. It brings a lot of almost kind of clarity in a way. It adds nuance. It adds just this increased feeling. It adds feeling and expression to our normal C chord. Right? Normal C chord. Sounds good. You know? Now it feels like we're a little bit more adventurous. We're not just, we're not vanilla, I could say. So in the example here, I'm going to put this into a chord progression just like I did with the other one. So here we go. Going to our G, A minor, and F. This is a really common chord progression. Then going to C add 9. Back to the A minor. Right, so it adds a little bit of oomph, adds a little bit of something that it's just this extra quality. It's color, it's nuance, it's expression. It gives us some place to go that is more, that gives us more to do other than our just major and minor standard chords, which we hear all the time. It's a great way to stand out and add that color and add that extra little bit of expression that can be really great, especially if the lyrical content of your song might be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more, or a little bit less straightforward than I'm happy or I'm sad. You know, maybe you're talking about something that's like, well, a little bit of a moral gray area or something like that. And some of these chord types can be a really great way to put that into the song itself. It's called text painting when you're doing something like that. Say like when you're putting the spirit of the music from the lyrics into the music. So that's our add 9 chord, and like we were talking about, it adds openness. It adds all types of, it adds a really cool sound on top of our C major chord. Now the next chord I want to talk about, I'm not going to be doing it necessarily in a C chord, but I'm going to use this in conjunction with the C add 9. The next chord is an 11th chord. We're literally just kind of going up, we're just adding more notes to here. So the 11th chord, we're doing the same thing that we did last time. We are just adding another third, stacking another third on top of our 9. So if we have, so if we're doing it in C, we would have C, E, G, B, D. Now we have to skip our E to get to our 11th, would be our F, right? We're adding an F here. So I have a really specific chord voicing that I love to use with this type of chord. And it's really, really easy. And that's why I love it, because it's super easy to use and it's super easy to understand. All you do, we're going to take our C major chord, standard open C, our zombie chord. If you've heard that usage of it before. And it's kind of a reason for it. Zombie chords are the basic open chords that we all learn. And they all kind of sound the same because it's just the same chords over and over again. By breaking yourself out of the habit of using these chords, you are adding more value and adding more vocabulary to your songwriting. So this D11 chord is what we're going to be doing. You take your C chord and you just move it on up to the 5th fret, starting on the 5th fret with your ring finger like this. I'm going to do that one more time. We're at our C, 3rd fret, going up to the 5th fret. Isn't that beautiful? What a gorgeous sound. It just kind of gives you the feeling like we're floating. There's so much to unpack here in the music. There's so much color. There's so much here, so much expression, so much beauty, but also a little bit of melancholy, a little bit of sadness. there's just so much here. You can really take away from it what you want. There's so much to interpret in this chord, and it can't be easier to play, right? We just take the basic chord that we all know. If you're a guitar player, you're writing songs on guitar, take that basic C chord and just move it on up to the 5th fret. Ah, gorgeous, gorgeous. All right, and this chord moves beautifully between our C add 9. So what that might sound like, you know, if we're up here, you can literally just slide up your way there. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Literally, this whole motion right here. I'm working on an EP at the moment, and the entire EP is based off of this one change. I got 6 songs out of that one change, which just tells you, how much you can take these chords and these chord types, and just how much you can get out of them because they have so much versatility. I would argue more so than our standard major and minor chords, even our 7th chords, because there's so much harmonic information to fill our ears that it becomes, there's more information. That's what it is. It gives us more information, and we can do more with that information because, well, there's more of it. So I'll play you a little excerpt from one of these songs to give you an idea of how it fits into an actual song. So here we go. That's it. That's it, right? Going down and then sliding back up. I wasn't lying. I literally just wrote an entire EP with just this one chord change. So another really great move that you can take from this D11 chord, that's just our basic C shape, but starting from the 5th fret. This pairs really, really well with an F major chord, no matter where you are. I personally like going from here to this one over here. Now, the main reason behind this is because we have this half-step motion between our F sharp and going down to the F natural. So this third in the D11, right? We have D, F sharp, G, D, E, right? So the G is acting as our 4 or as our 11 above the octave, and the E is acting as our 2 or our 9. Now the one thing you don't have here is a C. So it's not a true D11. It's kind of like an add 9, add 11. So we don't have the 7th involved here. We don't have a C sharp going on. So it's maybe not a true D11, but it's kind of a D add 9, add 11. So we have the E for the 9, we have the F sharp for the 11. I'm sorry, the G for the 11. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. So some songs that you might be familiar with this tune, if you ever heard "Time of Your Life" by Green Day. That second chord right there, that's a C add 9, but just with a G on top and the pinky here. That's it. C add 9, this D right here, that makes it a C add 9 in one of the most popular songs in the world. So you can sneak these in without kind of giving yourself an air of like, oh, I'm a pretentious musician now. Like, no. There's no pretension. There's no elitism. That's not what we're here for. We're here to just write music. That's it. We're just gonna write some music. Yeah. All right. So those are our 3 chord types. We have our major 7 chord over here. We're going to do our regular C chord. And what's great about these is we can take our really basic open chords and vary them, change them even just a little bit, moving one finger to create a much more expressive sound, a much more nuanced sound. I keep using the word nuanced. What I mean by that when I'm talking about music is it's not as straightforward of a sound as it might be, and that goes in a couple of different directions, because even a regular old major chord can sound sad depending on its context, right? But generally speaking, when you hear a major chord, you kind of have that bright, uplifting, or happy feeling. But when you hear these chords on their own, you don't have that type of straightforward quality. And that's what I'm referring to when I say nuanced. So I did promise a special announcement for the end of this video. And now that we're wrapping up, I would love to get into that. So this channel is called Musical Engineering. And at the beginning, at the inception of this channel, I wanted and intended to have audio production be a pretty big priority. I was an audio engineer for a long time, and I initially conceived of this idea years ago and had a pretty short run in 2016. And it was basically all audio tutorials. While I do think audio production is extremely important, particularly today as a songwriter and as a musician, you should be able to record yourself. You should be able to give yourself really basic mix and master, and just to get yourself to sound listenable, to sound okay in the audio world. And I will cover a little bit of that, but it's not going to be the priority like it was. And in the music world and in the audio world, the word engineering is very closely tied to the audio world and audio production. But as the content that I've been coming out with on this channel and moving forward will be coming out with will be centered mostly around educating on music theory and songwriting and that process, as well as some lifestyle stuff and dealing with freelancing and scheduling, creating structures and routines for yourself so that you don't get lost in the shuffle. And the name just didn't seem to quite fit anymore. Sure, it could have worked a little bit, and it has been working, but I think that ultimately it could be better, right? So just like we were talking about earlier, the whole idea of this stuff is to strip away elitism. This whole channel is about taking away the pretension behind music education, because oh my God, it's there, and oh my God, it's terrible. But I want to get rid of that because it's not worth it, and there's so many great songwriters out there that could be even greater, even better, if they knew they had more tools at their disposal. And it's not that they can't find and use these tools, but a lot of the time, and this is the case with one of the greatest bands, one of the best bands of all time, the Beatles, they know all this theory stuff. They do. They just kind of picked up on it on their own. They found it all on their own just through being musicians and being fantastic musicians that kept learning and kept writing. And they have kind of their own little names for modulations and modal mixture and things like that. So I don't want other people to have to do what they had to do, because oh God, back when they were active, man, it was way worse than it is today in terms of the pretension and the elitism and all of that. And I don't want any other musician to have to do that. I mean, I had to do it myself because I felt the same way. I felt like I wasn't worthy enough, or wasn't playing the right instrument, or wasn't playing the right genre to be musically educated to educate myself, nor would a lot of schools take me because of my proficiency in guitar, because I wasn't playing classical guitar or jazz guitar. So I eventually went to school for composition and just fell in love with theory. And it just goes to show that you don't have to be a classical musician, you don't have to be a jazz musician or jazz performer to get into this stuff and to really be able to use these tools to the fullest amount of their ability, to their fullest ability. So in light of that, I'm going to change the name of this channel and change the name of the website and everything to Just Write Music, because that's what it's all about. Music it's just music. And all we have to do is sit and write it. We want to take away all of our mental hangups, everything like that, so that we can just get down to doing what's important and just write music. I'm really excited about this branding change, and it's going to be completely in full swing by this time next week. Everything is pretty much already set to go. I just need to upload all the new photos and everything. The domain is already set to go. If you go to justwritemusic.com, it'll already send you right to my website. I literally just need to change the logos and the branding, and that's it. Everything is set. I'm really excited for this change. I think it's going to bring a lot of clarity to the channel, a lot of clarity for people who are maybe just watching this in the future, and they'll be like, oh yeah, there already is Just Write Music. I didn't know there was a name before that. So yeah, that's my special announcement. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name's Avi. I run musical.engineering, soon to be justwritemusic.com. And yeah, I got that .com. And special thanks, by the way, to Mr. Ed Clark. He basically gave me the domain justwritemusic.com for free. And man, that's some really hefty karma that he's putting out there, because wow, I don't know how I'm going to beat that. I don't know how I'm going to pay that forward. That was pretty amazing. I really couldn't be more thankful to Ed. He's a really fantastic individual, really nice guy. And check out his stuff, edclark.com. He's great. Yeah, I really couldn't I couldn't have had a better experience with him. He really, sorry, a little emotional. He's a great guy. So until next time, my name's Avi. I write music. This is about just writing some music. And in case you if you wanna write some great songs, you wanna add some of these cool chord types into your songs, but maybe you're not super great at writing a melody, or maybe just the melodies you're writing you're not happy with. Been there, done that. It sucks, but there are some pretty great tools that we can use to make our melodies better. And that's exactly what I give you in my free guide, 7 ways to write a more effective melody. Not the greatest segue there. I know. I'm working on it, okay? But head on down to musical.engineering. I'm going to put a link down in the description, and tell me where to send your free guide, because this is super helpful. It's stuff that I use every single time I sit down to write. And that's all. That's all I'm trying to do here. I just want to help you guys write music, write better music that lives up to your standards. Because for the longest time, I was writing music that I wasn't happy with. And even still, might not be happy with your music necessarily. That's a whole other thing that we can talk about. But in order to get to that point where you start enjoying your own music, it has to live up to your standards. And some of these techniques in this free guide are really, really great at helping you do that, at giving you some techniques, some really, really easy techniques to do. I think number 6 is a really great one. That one's called the sing test. And it might seem really, really rudimentary, but if you can sing the melody that you're writing, it might not be for a verse, it might be a solo, or it might be an instrumental part. If you can sing it, it's probably a pretty good melody. It has to be singable in order to be digestible and accessible to people. Another really great tip from my free guide is called the Octave Trick. I believe that's number 5. That one's really great. You just take a note and just go it down an octave or up an octave, whichever note you want in your melody. I like to use the one that I kind of feel like is the dullest note. And what that does is it just creates instant intrigue. It's like one of the easiest things you can do, but it just makes such a huge difference. It blew my mind when my teacher first showed me this trick, because it is just so easy. It almost makes you angry how easy it is, and how simply you can add interest into your melody. So check out my free guide. Go head down to musical.engineering and let me know where to send it. Or you can head to justwritemusic.com. You can also go there. It'll bring you to the same place. And yeah, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you're joining me after the fact, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about these 3 chord types. Let me know what you think about the brand change, the name change. And until next time, this is Avi from musical.engineering, soon to be justwritemusic.com.